After one crazy week of competitive ranked with Echo everywhere, she actually got banned. That's right, Echo, Tracer Moore, and Orisa are all banned in this competitive week. So that being said, let's break down the winners and losers of this week so that you know exactly what you should be playing to give yourself the best chance of winning. If you like this content and you want to level up your game, go check out GameLeap.com. Maybe you visited the website a while back, but I promise you there's tons more content that you've never seen before. Now, without further ado, let's just jump right into it, shall we? Now, I know that many of you might be bummed out that Echo's banned, but guess what? Ryan's back, McCree's back, and there's some goodies for all kinds of players. So, without wasting any time, let's jump into the tank winners, kicking it off with Ryan Zarya. Now, pound for pound, the most individually impactful combo of tanks is definitely going to be Ryan Zarya right now. Well, I'm going to get to other compositions you could play. If you want to have insanely high impact in the tanking category, Ryan Zarya gives you all the tools to be proactive and make tons of plays. Because Ryan stat-wise has insane tanking stats as far as his health, his impact, and his shield health, so he's going to be insanely powerful. The biggest tip I would give to you on Ryan in this patch is really watch out for Mei's and McCree's. McCree's in particular want to flash above your shield and kill you instantly, which you got to try to block. You could easily block it if you predict it, but make sure that you do not get stunned because it could be a way that you die instantly. As for playing around Mei, it's your job as Reinhardt not to let yourself get destroyed right into a Mei. Before you engage, you want to be scouting as much information as possible, because if you walk through the choke point and a Mei walls you off, then it's really your fault that you lost the team fight. Really keep that in mind as Ryan. There's a lot on your plate, but if you can track all these things, if you can prevent yourself from getting flashed, if you can prevent yourself from getting walled, you're going to win a lot of games on Reinhardt by enabling your team. Now, as a Zarya player, you're going to really want to be enabling your Reinhardt, and she's really good here as opposed to something like D.Va. Even though D.Va's still good, Zarya's a winner because she works so good with Ryan. And while yes, maybe D.Va would do more at the highest of ranks, in your average game, we're talking about the majority of games of Overwatch for your average player, Zarya's just going to be able to do more. She's going to be able to have more impact, commit to the front line, add damage, and to help you along with this, it either has released already or it's soon to be released, a Ryan Zarya synergy guide. So do yourself a favor and go check that out if you want to master these. It's going to be free on YouTube, so go check it out. Now let's talk about the still good category, and the still good category is Hammond, D.Va, and Monkey. These characters are all still good. Dive is still good, it's still alive, it's still well. While yes, Tracer is not on the map pool and she was a good diver, and Echo was definitely a good diver with Hammond. On the flip side, Moore is out of this situation, so that means it's a lot easier for you to dive. And yes, Brig is here, but more now on certain maps than ever before. Well, I definitely thought that dive was just the best de facto composition to run, bar none, when Brig was off the table, if you had the skill level. Now I can see a true map-based composition being the best, and of course, synergy is on the table. So for the vast majority of your games, I think a Ryan or a Hammond baseline is the best thing you could be running. Ryan definitely doesn't have to be paired with a Zarya. It can be paired with a D.Va too, especially if you're playing a high ground based map. And I do think that Monkey D.Va can be really good at diving certain maps, but on a lot of maps you're just gonna get so much free value just playing a Ryan Zarya. I mean, how many of your teammates in the lower ranks, we're talking gold, plat, bronze, how many of those teammates know how to really dive with a team or play around no shields or no synergy? They don't really know how to do that. But if you play something like a Ryan, you're gonna get a lot more free value. Even if Monkey D.Va, even if a combination of D.Va and Hammond, these are really good at the high level when people are all diving together. If you don't have a certain level of synergy, then this might not work out at all. So what I would suggest, if you really want to run these things, maybe you should be trioing. Try to get a trio combination of characters that really dive together. You know, you could even play something like Pharah Mercy Hammond, or you could play something like Monkey D.Va Lucio. There's a lot of different combinations you could do to make it so at least some of your team is being proactive and diving together, because that will ensure that you get value with dive compositions, and that will ensure that you have the flexibility to maybe play Ryan Zarya on something like King's Row, and then when you swap over to Nubani, you could play a Monkey D.Va dive. You could really play the map and play the strengths while still having the synergy to pick and choose, instead of just jumping in solo queue and basically just having to play what your teammates want to play. I mean, maybe you're on Nubani and no one wants to play a dive composition. They all want to play McCree and you have an instant-locking Zarya. Well, then you have to play Ryan because you can't really play Monkey that well into that. And if you do, you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage. Or maybe you're on King's Row and then everyone locks dive characters and now you have to play dive even though maybe you want to play Ryan Zarya. You see what I'm saying here? You could essentially pick the proper comp for this situation if you build like a baseline of a duo or a trio. You could even quad stack in this scenario, but I would be a little bit cautious about quad stacking because sometimes when you quad stack, you go up against 6 stacks, which is never fun because they usually have like 2 or 3 Smurfs on their team. Anyways, let's talk about the losers in the tanking category, and we have Roadhog and Sig. Their best combo between both these characters is Orisa, and Orisa's banned. You can't hook pull targets, you can't double shield. Now, while I do think that Sig is a little bit better than Roadhog in this capacity, Sig is definitely good with Orion. You could find some value with him, especially in ranked. I don't think that he's anywhere near as powerful as he normally is, and then Hog, of course, is going to get shut down this week. I mean, On is still in the hero pool. You still have McCree to stun him. You still have Reaper to stun him. You have Bubbles with Zarya and DM with D.Va. There's just so much that can mess up a Hog. You could get naded with Ana. There's just too much for Hog, and I think that he's just going to be a liability to play, as he usually is. But of course, if you're just better than everyone in your lobby, of course you could play Roadhog, but honestly, you could probably play anything at that point. Now let's move on to the DPS category. And I know that a lot of you DPS players are really sad that you can't play Echo, but guess what? There's a lot of cool characters you can play right now. So let's rattle off the winners first that you might be excited to play. The 3 winners in my mind are McCree, Reaper, and Soldier. These characters are all winners for a number of different reasons. Of course, McCree, finally off the ban list. McCree is very powerful, and he's always powerful when he's off the ban list. That's why he keeps getting banned, because he's so powerful. If you haven't picked up McCree or learned how to play him, now's the time, because he really is just one of the best DPS you could play on the table. He's so good at dueling enemies, keeping in check a lot of powerful characters in the still good category that I'm going to talk about in a second, like Doomfist and Mei, and he just brings so much baseline value to the table. You know, you could break shields, you can get flankers away, you can go on plays too. He's just like a jack of all trades. He does his job so well. Definitely pick up McCree, and what I would suggest you to do, exactly what I was talking about before, when you're up against these Rhines, stun them above their shield, and if they try to block it, you can bait them by trying to fake a stun above the shield and then stunning under. You could do all kinds of wacky things. I know I gave a tip and trick to Ryan to stop this, but now I'm giving a tip and trick to the DPS player to make it happen anyways. Now, let's talk about the next character, which is Reaper. And Reaper's really cool because Reaper can be played in a dive composition, and he can be played in a brawl composition with Ryan Zara. He has that flexibility and that versatility in the same way that Soldier does. Now, Soldier doesn't really play with a Ryan Zara in the same way that a lot of characters do, but he's going to be able to play on the flank and things like that and still play with any composition while still having value, which makes him a great solo carry pick. If you're in the lower ranks, definitely Reaper, Soldier, both these characters are really good, and you could essentially one-trick these characters. They could be good in almost every situation unless you're up against a hard counter. Like if you're playing Reaper up against a hard counter like Pharah, or Soldier up against a really good Doom, then maybe you don't want to be playing these characters, but aside from those niche situations, these characters can be played in any composition, while McCree really can only be played with the Ryan Zarya, and he's so powerful in that composition that he's necessary. I think he's really good, but he can't really be played with a D.Va or a Hammond or a Monkey in the same way that Reaper and Soldier both can. Now we're going to talk about the still good category, which is Mei, Hanzo, and Doomfist. Mei is going to be really good when playing with the Ryan Zarya against other Ryan Zaryas as a mirror breaker. I mean, walling off enemy Ryans, walling off enemy Zaryas. You could do all kinds of things to get a lot of value. Mei is the most annoying character in the world, but you know how much value in free fights she can get, and she's very powerful. And on top of that, she gives your team a little bit of extra sustain, a little bit of extra oomph against those dive compositions. I mean, Mei is really good against Hammond. Mei is really good against dive. She's hard to dive, so Mei is kind of good against both the compositions. The only downside to Mei is you can't play her with a dive, but if you're playing her with Ryan Zarya, she's just so good. Now, if you're playing a Mei, you're definitely going to need another character that can contest a Pharah, because Pharah's pretty good. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but I think that she is just so powerful to play, and not enough people play her proportionate to how powerful she is. Then we're going to talk about another still good character, which is Hanzo. Hanzo is just amazing. I mean, I talk about him time and time again, how he's probably just the most powerful DPS on the table. Like, while McCree is really good at doing his job, and he has a super solid amount of value that he brings to every game no matter what, if you can access the power level of Hanzo, you are just going to be doing so many things that are very powerful. Breaking shields, pressuring away enemies, killing enemies like Reapers and Meis all over the place, and you can outrange a lot of characters like McCree, and you can contest characters like Widowmaker. There's just so much that Hanzo brings to the table if you can access that, but it takes a lot of practice to get out, so I understand how you might not be able to play him in the same way that you play something like McCree. I would say that the one big weakness to Hanzo in general is a coordinated dive. While McCree on the other hand has a CC, a flashbang, that could shut down a dive, Hanzo has no such thing, so a lot of it's going to rely on positioning, and he does have mobility, which can make him hard to dive, but against coordinated dives against things like Hammond and things like D.Va, he really can't shut these characters down in the same way that a McCree can disrupt them. So that's probably his only weakness, besides the fact that he can't be played with a dive very well. But besides those two factors, he's just pound for pound probably the #1 DPS that I would suggest you to play right now. Now, let's talk about the last still good character on the list, which is Doomfist. Now, we all know about Doomfist's bugs, and Doomfist is kind of unfortunate for that, and Pharah is going to be pretty good this patch, so maybe there are going to be scenarios where Doomfist doesn't get the most amount of value, but as far as divers are concerned, your options are a lot more limited than they were before because Tracer's off the table, and she was kind of a shoo-in for the diver slot. So now you're having to choose between things like Genji, things like Sombra, things like Reaper, Soldier. There's a lot of different things you could play in the diver slot, but Doomfist is really good because he doesn't care at all about a Brig. He can outplay a lot of his bad matchups, and he's really good at brawling the other dive tanks. Doomfist is very good against Diva, Hammond, Monkey. These characters can't really do anything to him, and on top of that, he can really abuse a Brig, so I think that Doomfist is one of the best divers right now. Of course, we have to talk about his bugs, which are still not fixed, and they give a lot of inconsistency to the character. That being said, inconsistencies aside, the character still just gets a lot of value and can carry a lot of games. It's just that simple, and it's obvious to see anyone playing against a Doomfist. Now we're going to talk about two characters that are decent in the right scenario, and it's Pharah and Torb. I think Torb has a lot of value as an anti-dive character. He's really good with a Rein Zarya or even like a Rein Sigma. He has armor, he's really good at shield break. There's a lot to love about Torb, but some of his weaknesses are still on the table. Things like Pharah Mercy, things like Hanzo. He isn't the end-all be-all, and I think he has a place, and he deserves a mention on this list. If you're a Torb player, you could definitely play him on the right map in the right scenario, but I wouldn't one-trick him or play him in every scenario. And then, of course, we got to talk about Pharah, which I think as long as you have a Mercy, Pharah's going to be great on certain maps. If you're playing things like Ilios, you're playing things like Lijiang, Pharah's going to get a lot of value as long as there's verticality to abuse. Pharah got a buff recently, her explosive damage is up, so it's a lot easier for you to get that spam damage in, and I definitely think that Pharah's going to be great with a Hammond and a dive composition because she not only deals with a lot of his weaknesses, things like Mei, but she also helps him follow up and confirm kills. They work really well together as a synergistic trio with the Pharah, Mercy, Hammond, like I talked about before. Now we're going to talk about the unfortunate losers on the list, and I know that this is going to be a little rough for some people, but the biggest losers right now are not even that big, but they deserve a mention, is Junkrat, Genji, and Ashe. Now, Junkrat's only bad because Pharah is pretty good. Now, Junkrat can still be good on the maps where Pharah is bad, but Junkrat is good, and those are not all the maps, but there are some maps that are like that. Think about like Temple of Anubis defense, where it's kind of hard to play a Pharah, especially if you have a hit scan on your team, but Junkrat is still really good. So you got to kind of think of the scenario. I can call Junkrat a loser, but in reality, he's just a little bit under more pressure than he normally is, just because Pharah isn't like a complete throw pick like she used to be. She's a lot more powerful than she was just one balanced patch ago, and I really think that in general, instead of playing Junkrat, just play Hanzo instead. He brings more value to the table on average, in my opinion, unless you're playing him on those super specific maps where Junkrat is good. Now we're going to talk about Genji. Now, I know that Genji is a fan favorite, and I love Genji, and I love playing Genji, but the sad part about Genji right now, in particular, is that Brig is back. She's unbanned. Now, while Mora is not in the pure pool, I just think that there's other characters that you could be running instead of Genji to get more value. Now, if you're playing specifically with an Ana and nanoblading often and maybe diving into the enemy, you could definitely get a lot of value with Genji. But those are a lot of ifs, and those are checkboxes that have to be fulfilled, because I would not want to be playing Genji without a dive composition into a Mei Brig. That just sounds like a nightmare to me, and I know it probably sounds like a nightmare to you. So that's why he's on the slightly losers list, but he's not an overwhelming loser. There's still scenarios where you could play him, of course. And then the last character we have to talk about is Ashe, and Ashe is bad for two reasons, and two reasons alone, and it's Hanzo and Widowmaker. Two characters that are off the hero ban list, and they counter Ashe. They just roll her right now, and I know that Ashe can get a pocket, and she can kind of overwhelm these matchups, but that's only if she gets a Mercy pocket, and in those scenarios, a lot of times, it's still not good enough to deal with a Widowmaker, especially if that Widowmaker has Peel or resources or a pocket herself, and Hanzo's just really good against Ashe. I mean, I think that Ashe is best when these two characters are not good, and worse when these two characters are playable, and unfortunately, I think Widowmaker is just better on average to play than Ashe, and Hanzo is just so good in so many scenarios that I would be struggling to find a reason to play Ashe over him. That being said, you might find value with Ashe if you're getting big dynamites, and you're getting a lot of value out of your dynamites with a Mercy pocket, but that's your specific situation, not the overall meta of the week. Now, let's talk about the last section we have to talk about, which is supports. And supports are pretty simple this meta patch. The winners are Lucio, Ana, and Brig. And it's pretty simple to understand why. Lucio and Ana's always good, and Ana's even going to be better than normal because Mora's not a character that you can run right now because she's banned. So Lucio and Ana are going to be the de facto composition whether you're diving or whether you're playing Rein Zarya. Lucio, Ana's going to be good. Now, Brig has a spot here because now that Moore is off the table, if you're getting farmed as a support, you have the only option really for you is Brig. Brig is really good against dive. She definitely provides a lot of utility when playing with a dive, so I do think that she's going to get value in certain situations. And in the ranked environment, she's always a good flex pick to not be afraid to swap to if you're getting farmed. Now, a decent character we're going to talk about is Mercy. I do think that Mercy is good because she could pocket things like an Ashe, make an Ashe playable in my opinion, and then of course she could be pocketing a Pharah, which makes Pharah dominant. So Mercy definitely brings a lot to the table in some scenarios, but I do think that you have to really think about what you're missing out on if you play her, because if you substitute an Ana for her, then you're missing out on all these high impact plays. You substitute a Lucio for her, then you're missing out on speed boost. You're substituting a Brig for her, you're missing out on armor packs. Like, there's always something that you're giving away when you pick up that Mercy. So you have to really be thinking about, what am I actually gaining from playing Mercy as opposed to these other characters, and that will help you decide whether you should be playing something else altogether. And then we're going to talk about the losers for the meta week. Bap and Zen. Baptiste, unfortunately, is just not that good when you're not playing against double shield. While he can get solo carry impact, immortality is still a very powerful ability. I don't think that he's at his greatest when double shield is banned. He's not really that good in a lot of different situations. I think he's more niche pick, but I do think that if you're a Baptiste god and you have really tight immortality field placements, then you can get a lot of value out of him. Of course, like I said, his abilities are completely nutty if used correctly. And then Zen is a character, he's always a character that I'm going to tell you not to play unless the double shield is meta. Unfortunately, Zen is basically like paper right now. He could just die to everything. He's so fragile, and of course, if you're a god Zen, you could play Zen, but at that point, you're basically probably smurfing. I mean, you're not bringing more value on Zen than you could be bringing on other characters playing at the same level, so really, I would probably stay away from Zen altogether this week. He's like my true loser on the list. Him and Roadhog are probably the only really bad losers on the list right now. That being said, if you want to master any of the winners right now, or the still good characters, do yourself a favor and go check out GameLeap.com. We got in-depth VOD reviews and Grandmaster guides that will give you all the tools you need to succeed in the game of Overwatch. If you agree or disagree with anything on my list, definitely let me know, as well as any suggestions for future videos or guides. I would love to make them. That's all I have for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time,